Welcome to Kindred. This is Lisa Reagan, and today I'm talking with Darcia Narvaez, founder of the Evolved Nest, about babies' rights and the new Baby Bill of Rights poster you can find at Kindred and the Evolved Nest. Welcome, Darcia.
Hello there, Lisa.
Hello. So tell me about the Baby's Bill of Rights and why do we need one?
Yeah, it's listed and presented as rights, but it's really about basic needs that babies have. It's something that we kind of have forgotten in so many ways in the modern culture because we're distracted with other things. And so it's really important, I think, for everyone to remember, for the communities to remember that this is what babies need to grow well. We have tons of neuroscience evidence now showing how important these things are.
So this audience, it seems to be really important to clarify as we have such a crisis in America for parents who are going to be sensitive to seeing, one more thing you need to think about. That's not what this is. We're speaking to communities, policymakers, and this is the science of, as you said, babies' needs. So what
That's
are,
right.
what are the community responsibilities?
Right. So that's really important to stress that this is not another thing for moms to do. Poor moms, they're overstressed already in the United States. But this is something the community should be providing. And the reason for the world to worry about this and be concerned or be aware is that the United States exports its ways to the world, its ways of raising or birthing children and what's important about, life, what's a good life. And so we have to redraw our assumptions, revamp how we understand children, because the United States doesn't do a good job in raising its children. And so this is not only for the US, but for the world and to raise awareness.
So the United Nations has a Convention of the Rights of the Child, and this was ratified in 1990. Why do we need a baby Bill of Rights?
Right. The convention is very important. It says things like that children should be enabled to develop physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, and socially in a healthy manner, in normal manner, with conditions of freedom and dignity. But it doesn't spell out how you do that. What does that mean? So people can have their own ideas of how that should be done. Well, the Evolve Nest gives us the guidelines. These are guidelines from the evolutionary practices of our ancestors that led to survival and thriving. And so it's really important to spell out what babies need. And that's where we get into this list, right? Because it's not enough just to say, oh, yeah, be good to your kids. Make sure you raise them in a healthy way. No, people don't understand anymore what that means in modern societies. The other thing about the convention is that it emphasizes parents and mothers. And we know from our history as a species that it's the community that raises the children, the village raises the children. And so we've had the problem at the borders of the United States where an aunt or uncle or grandparent is with a child. And because it's not the parent, the United States assumes, oh, we can separate them and, they're not the caregiver, they're not the nurturer, that because of the assumption is the mother or the father. So we have to get away from that nuclear family focus that the Western world has kind of pressured everyone to take up around the world and get back to an understanding that it's the community that raises the children.
What are the differences between needs of babies and needs of children?
Well, babies are in a very immature state for the first few years of life, and everything they experience is shaping how well their brain and body works. And so any kind of extensive distress is going to undermine the systems that are going to guide them for the rest of their lives. So that means the stress response can be set up to be hyperactive. Various networks in the brain can be either heightened for that stress response, and undermines reward systems, the sense of being able to be flexible and connected and There's so many things now we're learning from the neuroscience, how important these practices are for the child to self-organize their personality, their sociality, their morality, their cooperation for the rest of life. So, and of course, their mental and physical health. So the trajectory of life is set in those early years. And babies are unique in that way, because as we grow, we get less and less plastic, less and less malleable, less able to change our trajectory. It takes a lot of work as an adult, when you've been so toxically stressed as a young child, to try to, change the way your stress response works. It's enormous work. So why not set everything up properly to begin with?
So this brings us to your word, undercare, which is what is normalized in our culture instead of nurturing. Can you speak to this societal piece, this benefit to giving babies what they need instead of just normalizing undercare?
Right. We've normalized kind of maybe I would call it neglect, but that's a legal term. So we say undercare. We try to minimize the needs of babies. And John Bowlby has a quote where he quotes people saying, why do babies need so much? Why are they so hard on their parents? And, that's an attitude that has, especially in the Anglo-American world, has been predominant for some time. And the US is noted for its taboo on tenderness. So cruelty is sort of built into our systems. The belief that, you got to be tough and have grit, make that baby independent. And those kinds of attitudes are actually quite undermining to society as a whole, because each person, in order to have a strong society, needs to be strong in themselves. They need to have a sense of well-being, of, that they're good and they're wanted and they belong and they matter and they're connected, and that their health and the way their systems work aren't distracting them from connecting to others. So when you're dysregulated in various ways, so you're kind of a sickly body, brain, mind, when you're under cared for, and it's really hard to be open and flexible and playful because you're so self-preoccupied, and that's what happens with undercare. And so you can't be a very good citizen then, and you'll get very reactive to things. Oh, you get mad easily, you'll withdraw because you get afraid easily. Those are the enhanced survival systems we're born with that are there to keep us alive. But when we undercare for children, we don't grow the stuff that's supposed to grow, which is that connectedness, the ability to get along, the sociality, the compassion that our ancestors showed towards one another. Those are the things we need, and otherwise the society falls apart. And so undercare matters for every age, for every group, and especially in early life, we need to provide that evolved nest.
So let's take a look at this poster, and wherever you're listening to this talk with Darcia, you're going to be able to look below and find a link to it. You'll also be able to buy a copy for yourself. This poster does reflect the 9 elements, components of the evolved nest, but there are 14 rights that have been, so some of the elements or components of the evolved nest have been broken out. Can we just go through those with you?
Sure. Number 1 is, of course, to be welcomed with a naturalistic birth at full term, which used to be assumed to be 40 to 42 weeks, and ideally that still is. And that then is also, birth is kind of governed by when the child's ready to come out, right? Not by a stressor that causes premature birth or other factors where the doctor has decided on the timing, the birth date, the due date. That's pretty random because there's babies stay in the womb. They vary by about 55 days, how long they stay in the womb, right? So you got to let the baby decide, unless the mother's health is in danger or something, of course. And then there's no induction of pain at birth either, for the mother or child. And we do those things routinely in medicalized birth, because a lot of the practices were set up before people believed that babies felt any pain, believe it or not. So circumcision is a no-no for a baby's rights. That should be a decision that the person makes themselves when they're an adult, if they want to be circumcised, for example. And in childhood, no punishment, because we know we have longitudinal data showing that actually shifts the trajectory of that child's development towards aggression and towards being more self-centered. Of course, they punish you, and then you get focused on, oh no, I can't, I'm wrong, I'm bad. How do I protect myself? Instead of, again, that social connectedness, which is part of our heritage, our species' normal way of being is to be very social. I'll just keep going.
Sure, let's go number 3.
Yeah, number 3. So number 3 is infant initiated suckling and breastfeeding for several years. So that's something we see in all animals, mammals, that infants are the ones in charge of when they suckle. They indicate their need, rooting or other ways. And then in our ancestral context, the breast was available. And if the mother wasn't available, someone else's breast, even dad's, right, to comfort that child. Because, again, the baby is growing so rapidly and it's so plastic, right? But synapses, thousands a second, are growing, and the systems, the cells are communicating in all our bodies. Actually, millions of interactions are happening every second. It's like amazing. We don't hardly understand our biology. It's like we forget that we are dynamic systems. And so breastfeeding provides exactly what that baby needs, because it's tailored for that baby. The saliva of the baby alters what is in that breast milk, and it's different in the morning than at night. So it really matters when you breastfeed and what milk you put into the bottle if you're pumping, for example. All right, then number 4, playful, responsive relationships. So we grew up, our species, to be playful and to do that from birth. Babies are ready to interact and connect and converse, proto-conversations from birth. And having responsive relationships is really key, again, to keep babies calm, keep them in a state of growth, rather than in a state of distress, which undermines growth and then shifts it away from the normal species, normal development. And play is something that our ancestors did throughout life. Number 5, caregivers provide a deep bonding and limbic resonance. So that's part of this responsiveness that's really important, to be there, be present with the baby, not distracted, not focused on other things, but have that deep bonding. And just carrying the baby on your body, skin to skin especially, is helpful here, because it coordinates the baby's systems to grow well.
Maybe just explain limbic resonance for people who might wonder what that is.
Limbic resonance is referring to the part of the brain that is the emotional part of the brain, the limbic system, which is oriented to experience. It's oriented and ready to connect and bond. It's sort of like a mind meld maybe people understand that better, but it's intersubjectivity. So it's that really magnetic pull towards the other, and being then coordinated and co-regulated with the other. And mothers co-regulate, and caregivers co-regulate their babies and their children even by their emotional systems, their emotional state that they're in. Number 6, being treated as an equally important person. So this is highlighting how important babies are as persons, not plants or machines. They shouldn't be treated like, you just feed them and water them and put them away in their crib or their playpen. No, they are dynamic persons who are growing every second, and so should be treated with respect and dignity. Number 7, the primary caregiver, the mother. These people should be supported throughout the life of the child from conception on. So this is actually an intergenerational aspect of the evolved nest, where everyone feels supported, so that the mother's, for example, biochemistry is supporting the growth of the fetus in the womb, and the mother has been supported when she was in the womb, and these positive buffering of the evolved nest then helps support her health and well-being throughout life.
This
Number
is really important. I just want to drop our term, your term, allo mothering here as well, because this is a very tender spot for a lot of people who we flew this poster past some of our kindred community members, and this is the one, number 7, that is the most tender, because people feel that they didn't get their needs met in our culture acutely, and now they're expected to meet the needs of their children, and this is the one they get stuck on and sometimes can't even see the rest. So the word allo mother, it seems to be important to our awareness that we're not supposed to be doing this alone. We're supposed to have a lot of other people in place to help us.
That's right. So mothers need to also rely on others to get their needs met so they can meet the needs of the baby or whoever the caregiver is, right? So we all need to be supporting one another and take a break, right? Because there's another person to step in to care for the child or the baby when needed. So we're living in situations with nuclear families that are very abnormal for our species. Our normal way of being is extended communities, some kin and non-kin that care for one another and share and are generous, and it's not perfect, romantically perfect, of course, but it's a way of being that calms everyone down, right, in general, and meeting basic needs is something the whole community does for one another.
Okay, number 8 is nearly 24/7 positive touch. Why is that important? How's that done?
Yeah, positive touch. This is a mammalian thing, right? That if you watch other mammals and they're young, they're pretty much carrying them all the time, or they're on their back. Chimpanzees and bonobos can hang on because they have a lot of the grip. We have the grip in our babies too, but we have no hair on our bodies for them to hang on to. So we have to be doing the carrying. Although a child who is carried from the beginning learns to just cling properly. And if our baby hasn't had that experience, they don't learn that. And so maybe they're harder to carry. So you want to do it as from the beginning, because there's sensitive periods for different things, and we hardly understand them. And so positive touch is growing all sorts of systems well, the healthy aspects of the vagus nerve, of course, the stress response, the heart rate, breathing. Babies need to learn how to breathe outside the womb. They didn't have to do it in the womb. And body to body connection helps them feel grow well, and also feel like they matter. Okay. Number 9, embedded in the activities of a community 24/7. So babies shouldn't be isolated from others. They shouldn't be put off in their own room in a crib or off in a playpen. They should be in the family, with the family or the community, and passed around and, responsively, paying attention to what the baby's interests are and their reactions, and keeping, again, babies calm so that they're in the growth state and not in the anti-growth state. They are ready, children are ready to learn from the community activities and want to pitch in. That's how traditional communities raise their kids. Children are ready to help with, when they're 1, they're ready to help with the laundry folding, even though they make a mess of it. But the adults in those communities understand that you follow the interests of the child, because there's the sensitive periods for learning to be a community member. If you thwart them, and then later, they're a teenager and you ask them to fold the laundry or something, they don't want to do it then, because they never learned. The sensitive period is gone for, just getting into that flow of life. So we have to pay attention to what that child's interests are and include them in the community's activities.
And number 10 is community support to respect and meet basic needs. Again, this is one of those pieces that we have to use our imagination as Americans to even know what that is, because we don't have those things in place here.
That's right. Yeah, so again, that's the basic needs we keep talking about, right? So these rights are the basic needs that children have, that babies have. So babies are 0 to 3 years old, and but all of us have basic needs that we need met to be met throughout life, and that's what the evolved nest provides for everybody. Opportunities for full sensory and intellectual development. Again, that's following the interests of the child and giving them freedom to roam, to wander, to climb trees. And again, this is something that the very anxious parents and communities of today in the United States does not much allow anymore. So we have to turn to understanding and trusting that inner compass of the child.
Mm. And trust, we're here, number 12, unfolding of a child's unique spirit is supported. Again, the fearful nature of parenting in the United States doesn't seem to support that well.
That's
But,
right.
but I'm just noticing these do build on each other.
Mhm.
As we go through here, we're getting to the point now where almost at the end of the list where there's going to be a more whole person, a sense of wholeness. And we're talking, Kindred, about the wisdom is the experience of wholeness. At the end of this process, we may have a more wise being to contribute to society. But let's keep going. Number 12 is unfolding of a child's unique spirit.
Yes, and this is quite important and understood in traditional societies. You don't thwart the child's interest because you will harm them. So there's a sense that you have to trust that that again inner compass that the child has, and it needs to be done from the beginning. Because if you start it later, it may you already have the foundations that might be shaky. So anyway, so I mean, I could say a whole bunch about it, but let's go on.
Number 13, full autonomy as development allows.
Again, this is the allowing a child to make their own way in life, to let them follow their interests, their passions, their kind of their what draws their attention. Now you have to be careful here not to put them in environments that are unsafe, not to put them in environments that draw their attention to things that aren't all that healthy. For example, 0 to 3 year olds should not be in front of screens. Those things are shaping the brain to be oriented to things that are not really alive, right? Because the screen, whatever's on the screen, is not a living being that reacts to the baby in the immediacy. The baby has to learn how to be in the moment with the other and read the cues and know how to respond in a way that works. And that's a lot of stuff to learn before they develop language. Dan Stern has pointed out a whole bunch of things. And if you put them in situations where you're kind of just shutting down that growth, now you're missing a sensitive period, and you're going to end up with a child that's less skilled socially, less skilled of living well, and maybe they're great for a cubicle screen job, right? But they're not going to be happy. So our happiness relies on our relationships. It relies on our capacities to relate, and the final one too, right? 14, the deep contact with the natural world, and respect that we learn from being deeply connected. So that receptive intelligence that you develop when you're out in nature extensively, paying attention, you start to realize there's communications going on, and you learn to pick it up, and you learn to feel part of the whole cosmos right there. This is part of being then a full human being, a connected person, a person that feels happy because in the present moment you're connected and you feel all these connections.
So I want to go back to 13 really quickly, because this full autonomy as development allows in our authoritarian culture may sound like you're given an endorsement for permissive parenting to authoritarian oriented brains. So I'm, I just want to say that is not what is happening here.
Right. It's because when you provide for the basic needs, you're giving them the evolved nest components, lots of touch, affection, breastfeeding, play, relational attunement, that limbic resonance. Uh, you're going to have a child that wants to be with you, that wants to follow their goodness, follow their spirit of growth, rather than the permissiveness. Permissiveness is a different animal. It's where you're absent, where the parent is absent emotionally, cognitively, or even physically, and you're just letting the child off on their own without any support system. So the evolved nest is a support system that allows for the kind of autonomy that leads to a positive growth. um, Leaving kids alone in the house or wandering without any stories, without any guidance for how to live a good life, then is more of the permissive style that we're not advocating.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for putting together these baby Bill of Rights. It's been around for a long time, and I'm really happy to be able to present it to everyone. It is available for you to download on kindredmedia.org and theevolvednest.org. Probably find it in a couple of other places out there and on our social media platforms. But I guess the last thing I want to point to is this little line at the bottom that says you can discover the science, resources, and more on the evolvednest.org. And, I just remember Time Magazine just did their 100th anniversary special, and they refeatured Jamie Grumet, who was the mom who modeled breastfeeding, full-term breastfeeding on the cover a decade ago. And in that decade, she has that article in Time referred to attachment as a philosophy that was optional and like a cultural preference for families who were elitist, even because they were able to afford to think that way. And 10 years later, Jamie, for example, was elected last year by the readership of Yahoo as one of the best stories because she did an interview with them 10 years later. So this has changed. I only offer this because I believe that our consciousness in this country, even though it's not reflected back to us in mainstream media outlets like Time, is shifting, and people are looking for the science, and they do believe that there is something different here that is that we can latch onto. And I do believe the evolved nest and the science that's presented here at the website it fulfills that need. So it was kind of a cool thing to see. And you can see on the kindredmedia.org site that Time cover that just ran with Jamie on it again, with 100 other selected out of 5,000, I think it is, covers in the last 100 years. That was one of the most impactful according to Time. It's great that they gave her a nod. They even said they don't normally have regular people on there on the cover. That was unusual. So, and now she's again being celebrated over at Yahoo for one of the best stories of the year. I feel like I hope that this poster and the Baby Bill of Rights are met with the seekers who are seeking it, and in the spirit of here's the science that backs you up. High five for you and listening.
And here, for those who are interested in the where this was published in a academic way, this is the book in which the Baby Bill of Rights first appeared.
Let's read it for the people listening. It's basic
needs, well-being, and morality, fulfilling human potential. It was published in 2018.
I will put that right in our resources section under this podcast, Darcia. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thanks so much to all of the Kindred community members who gave us feedback on this before we launched it out here to the world. And God bless you all for tuning in to yourselves and providing what you can to your children and our culture, and for for your work, Darcia. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks, Lisa.